I'd like to call to order the Scotch Plains Fanwood Board of Education open agenda meeting, March 12th, 2020. Mrs. Saradaki, will you please call the roll?
Mrs. Boroff? Here. Mrs. Brody?
Here.
Mrs. Mitchell?
Here.
Mrs. Sirianni?
Here.
Mrs. Williams?
Here.
Mrs. Winkler?
Here.
Mr. Murray?
Here.
Dr. Kulikowski?
Here.
Quorum is present.
Thank you, Mrs. Saradaki. Will you please join me in the salute to the flag? Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Prior to coming out into public, we held our executive session. We spoke about a HIB review. We discussed the personnel agenda. We had another HIB report. We had a legal status report and the suspension and detention report. At this time, we have two additions to the agenda. 1 BUS staff training addendum and 19 BUS current environmental incorporated proposal for the high school auto shop. The New Jersey Open Public Meeting Law was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend any meetings of public bodies at which business affecting their interests would be discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of this Act, the Scotch Plains Fanwood Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published by having the date, time, and place thereof posted at the Board of Education offices located at 512 Cedar Street, Scotch Plains, New Jersey. Such notice was provided in written notice and forwarded to the Star-Ledger, the Times, the Township Clerk of Scotch Plains, the Borough Clerk of Fanwood, and the revised annual notice of regularly scheduled meetings adopted on August 29th, 2019. At this time, we will have the 2020-2021 proposed school budget. Members that need to have seats in the audience, and we'll be using the overhead projector.
Nancy.
Picture chair behind.
What's your name? I'd like to have at least.
Okay, this presentation is regarding the proposed 2020-2021 school budget. Sorry. This is presentation is for the 2020-2021 proposed budget. The budget process involves your vote on the budget, because back in 2011, a law was passed in 2011 that allowed the board to pass a resolution in 2012 to change the election date of the board members to the November general election. And this created a change for the budget also, in that the budget no longer needs to be voted on as long as we stay within the cap. The election timelines are that nomination petitions, this is for candidates, are due to the Union County Board of Elections by 4 p.m. on Monday, July 28th. August 11th, there'll be a drawing for ballot positions at the Union County Board of Elections. November 4th is Election Day, and installation of elected Board of Ed members is January 7th, 2021. I'll go through this quickly. because we haven't made changes since last year. But our guidelines include continuing to examine all functions of the district and consider the most cost-effective ways of operating, including shared services initiatives, maintain appropriate class sizes, maintain efforts in staff development, curriculum improvement, and program evaluation, continue to implement recommendations in the area of mandated, safety-related, energy-saving, security, long-term maintenance, and capital improvement projects. The district will continue to investigate opportunities to reduce energy costs, and when possible, excess extraordinary aid will be used to meet capital and maintenance needs. Continue to implement the technology plans for the district as approved by the board, including technology in the classroom curriculum. Continue to seek ways to provide new and innovative programs. Develop priorities of programs to be maintained or considered for change. Give priorities to seeking grant funding from federal and state governments, corporations, and foundations. Maintain unrestricted fund balance in accordance with state guidelines of 2%. When excess surplus is realized, deposits will be made into the capital and maintenance reserve accounts. To the extent that new programs or new expenditures are required, the funding source, where feasible, should come from existing programs, and evaluate the current and long-term benefits and costs of reducing the tax levy below the state mandated cap. The assumptions we made going into the budget process, we have more firm information now, but when we began the budget process, it was that medical, dental, and prescription benefits would be based on projections from our insurance consultant. Salary increases will reflect an amount equal to the anticipated settlement for the Scotch Plains Fanwood Administrative Group, the Supervisors Association, and the International Brotherhood of Teamsters Local 469, and the actual amount will be budgeted for all other staff. Staffing will be adjusted to reflect anticipated enrollment trends. Technology funding will remain at current levels. Principal allotments will be adjusted for the changing enrollment in the schools. Supervisor budgets will be maintained at 2019-20 levels, with increases made for staff development where determined to be necessary. Utility appropriations were increased at 2% for this year, and revenue for state aid will remain at the same level as 2019-20. That was our assumption until we got our actual state numbers. Major expenses to operate our schools are listed here. You'll see that the main expense is our salaries, special education services, transportation of students, custodial services, facility maintenance, benefits, instructional support services, and utilities and commercial insurance. Here you'll see some of our teachers who were recognized for Governor Educator of the Year and New Jersey Exemplary Educators of the Year for 2019. This was done just this past fall. Some of our curriculum initiatives for 2020-21. We are introducing high school block scheduling. We have a one-year pilot scheduled for next year. We have the Teachers College Elementary Reading and Writing Project Year 2. Increased counseling support. New Jersey Learning Standards Priority Review. 5th grade standards-based report cards. This has already been done in grades K to 4. And we're going to be working on implementing it in grade 5. Elementary pacing guides. Here you'll see teachers working with their students on the Teachers College Reading and Writing Project. Cole's second graders writing their own stories. Here you'll see some examples of arts integration, making puppets on the left side, and on the right you'll see the zoology class who made the wonderful artwork we have out in the hallway here. Other curriculum initiatives, we will be working on our teachers with Wilson training, integration of multicultural literature, world language stamp testing, which is going to be offered by the district to all the world language students now. STEAM and arts integration will continue, and FlexPD, teacher coaching and leadership, teacher leadership, and we'll be adding some additional parent workshops. As you can see here, the district enrollment trend over the past 6 years has been very flat. We have a total increase of 48 students over 6 years. Here it is graphically. Proposed staffing changes for 2020-21. We're anticipating possible need for an additional elementary teacher. We have a .4 ESL teacher and a full-time ESL teacher. Our needs have increased greatly, and so we'll be moving in the direction of having 2 full-time ESL teachers. We'll be increasing our student assistance specialist staff to 5 from 4, and that will give us 1 for each of the elementary schools. We'll be adding a high school CST member. We add on average 3 student aides a year, and so we have built that into the budget. A clerical data entry person to handle some of the data entry having to do with Power School, and lunch general aides. That's based strictly on the number of classes at the elementary level. So a total of 8.32 positions. Our operating revenue, we do not anticipate using any adjustments that we're allowed to use, including bank cap, and so we'll be just using the 2% on top of the 2019-20 tax levy. From state and federal, in the operating account, you can see here where our categorical special aid did increase over $600,000 from the state. The categorical transfer aid went from $3,115,770 to $3,760,545. Everything else is consistent. You'll see the history of state aid in the district. I went back to 2015-16 to record what the state determined we should be receiving as aid versus what we actually receive. And you can see that there, since 2015-16, over those 6 years, there is almost $16 million in funds that we did not receive that the state says we should have received based on their formula. Our operating revenue summary, you'll see here that the local tax levy is the $93,021,192. We have fund balance carried over from last year, which can be used in the budget. Other local sources includes things such as interest income, facility uses, prior year tuition refunds, and current year tuition refunds. Subscription busing, and things like that. Our state aid, which you saw on the previous screen, extraordinary aid, and federal Medicaid. And that number, federal Medicaid, is a number that the state tells us that we have to budget. They tell us the amount. So you can see here the district, the local tax levy is 93.3%. Because the state aid increased a little bit, our local tax levy went from being 94% of our budget last year to 93.3% this year. We have our repayment of debt, which has decreased 4.27% from last year to this year. And we have here the total operating budget proposal. Salaries, obviously, the largest percentage. Benefits, out-of-district tuition, facility maintenance and security, transportation, capital purchases, and then other expenses. You'll see here graphically that the other expenses is only 7% of the whole budget. Salaries and benefits is 76%, tuition 9%. That tuition of 9% does include the magnet schools for our students also. That is not strictly special ed tuition. Facility maintenance and transportation. Capital expenditures is small slice, and then we have other. The other expenses includes quite a few things. All classroom and office supplies, all computer software for classrooms and offices, textbooks, media center books, media center supplies, classroom and office furniture, technology purchases outside of the lease purchase, extracurricular activities, testing materials, nurse supplies, security personnel, teacher workshops and training, legal, audit, and other professional services, postage, copy machines and paper, telephone costs, internet access, purchase services for special education, and general insurance. The capital and maintenance items we've budgeted are the technology lease purchase in the amount of $650,000, miscellaneous capital items in the amount of $20,000, and the New Jersey State Debt Service Assessment. That, again, is an amount that the state provides us, for a total of $835,426. From capital reserve, there are three things that will be coming out: Park Middle School masonry repair in the amount of $1.6 million, lighting on the turf fields in the amount of $1.4 million, and Brunner School gym repair in the amount of $850,000. When you see our actual budget this year, though, you will not see the Park Middle School repair come out because it has already come out. We got special permission from the county to move ahead with that work, and so it has already come out of the capital maintenance account because of the nature of the repairs that need to be done. What will it cost local taxpayers? In Scotch Plains, the percentage increase will be 2.07%, an average of $181.95 on the average home. The Fanwood numbers are purely estimates based on last year's numbers for the average assessed value, because with the reassessment that they're going through, they don't have numbers to provide us. Next year, hopefully, again, we'll get numbers from them, so we'll be able to calculate it accurately. But the percentage increase should be correct at 1.13%. And here are some of the wonderful activities our children take place in. You have girls varsity soccer, gymnastics, and their awards, wrestling, and college signing day. Fine arts, Chicago.
Awesome. First chair. That's amazing.
Jonathan Yu making first chair in the orchestra, marching band, drumline, and the Region 2 choir. And here you have the National Honor Societies and National Merit Scholarship finalists. And that is it. We should sit down before questions. Huh? Huh?
That was a good one. So I looked at you. It's just cool.
That was great, Debbie. Thank you.
Three more times.
right there by the mic.
I apologize for not having copies for all the board members. We have been rather busy with the whole coronavirus, but it should be on the website.
Okay. Now, does anybody have any questions for Mrs. Saradaki regarding the presentation of the budget?
I just wanted one point of clarification on the debt services assessment number, because I know we talk about it a lot, and it's a number that the state has started to charge us for grants that were taken out years ago, but they don't have a definitive total balance that we owe them. They just tell us that we owe them this number.
Yes.
So just clarifying that number is...
Yes, it's, they gave us grants back in 2000. When we did construction work, it was like grants we've received recently, where the state says, well, we'll pay 40% of the qualified work you're doing in the district. And so they gave us those grants in 2000 time period, and then in around 2010 they decided that they couldn't afford to pay all the interest on all those bonds throughout all the school districts in New Jersey. So they determined that they would start charging us for the interest on the grants that they gave us.
And we've continued to have no luck with the state to get an estimation of how long the interest will be required to continue to be paid.
No, I'll try again based on, yes, but when I originally tried, no, they had no information on that.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
I would just like to make a comment that we have met with both municipalities, Scotch Plains and Fanwood, and we have gone over the budget line by line, detail by detail, and we've had very good conversations with both mayors and members of the town councils. So I thought that was very productive.
Thank you, Dr. Mass. Well, thank you, Mrs. Saradaki. I thought it was very clear, and I appreciate how you outlined everything. And
Thank
to
you.
see as tightly as we are, as well as you're spending the money. And I think we should have about 10 slides for that last slide instead of one slide for all those extra things that come under that one heading. That so much is for that little bit of money, because everything else is salary and benefits.
Yes.
I do think it's important to note as well that this is basically the third different budget session we've had as far as overviews go. So the reason why there's not a lot of questions is so people can understand why we've had different individual sessions at prior board meetings. So a lot of those questions have been answered already. So this is just a cumulative.
Any more comments or questions? Seeing none, then do we have a motion on the budget as
So moved.
proposed?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Murray. Thank you, Ms. Williams.
No, it's
Oh,
me.
excuse me, Ms. Brody. Any further comment or question, discussion? Okay, Mrs. Saradaki, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
Ms. Brody?
Yes.
Cora?
Yes.
Ms. Mitchell?
Yes.
Ms. Suriani?
Yes.
Ms. Williams? Ms. Winkler?
Yes.
Dr. Kulikowski?
Yes. Motion carries. We have a budget.
Just 3 pages of the agenda.
Okay. In accordance with the Scotch Plains Fanwood Public Schools bylaws 0164, 0165, the meeting shall be open for 15 minutes for public comments with a maximum of 3 minutes per speaker. Speakers addressing the superintendent items, business functions, or other board business will be heard first, and if time remains, speakers may address other matters. Please note, board members will not respond regarding concerns with individual students or staff members. Such matters should be addressed with the superintendent's office. When you come to the podium, please state your name and the town in which you reside. Seeing no one approaching, we'll close this, and we'll have another opportunity later in the meeting, and continue with committee reports. Does anybody have a committee report this evening? Mr. Murray?
I have a facilities committee report. We met on Monday, and we had 6 items that we talked about, first being School 1 lunchroom air conditioning. So apparently the School 1 lunchroom didn't have air conditioning. So in order to get that fixed appropriately, we're recommending the installation of a new rooftop unit at the cost of $69,000 coming from 2018-19 excess extraordinary aid. We talked about the bid opening process for Brunner Gym, expected to open on March 24th. And then hopefully shortly after that, we'll have the bid awarded and be able to move on with that project. The high school field lighting project, so we had a second meeting of the neighbors regarding their concerns, which is scheduled. That meeting is scheduled for March 31st. We had one a couple of weeks ago. So in that meeting, the plan is to share draft policies that we had discussed regarding field lighting, PA system usage, and good neighbors. The School 1 playground drainage, so there is a request for approval of a proposal from T&M Associates for a solution to mitigate the current drainage and ponding issues in the playground at School 1. So the plans and oversight would be a fee of $7,800 coming from the current year operating funds. That would be overseeing our maintenance staff doing all the work. So it saves us some money there. Park and Terrell, there's a request for round cafeteria tables to replace the tables that are there at a total of $90,000. It'll be 69 different tables across both schools, money coming from the Cafeteria Enterprise Fund. And the last is requesting approval for professional engineering services for A&S Consultants to provide soil-bearing capacity and foundation recommendation report for the field lighting project with an approximate cost of $10,000. So those we are recommending the approval of at this meeting, I believe. And that's it for the facilities report.
Thank you, Mr. Murray. Any other committee reports? Ms. Brody?
I have fine.
A question?
Yep.
Oh, sure, if you have a question for Mr. Murray.
Evan, I know your report said something about I just want people to know that the current cafeteria tables are not being
Oh, yeah.
going to say that, yeah.
wasted, but they're going, correct me if I'm wrong, they're going to the high school to accommodate the block scheduling the block lunch.
We will be redeploying those tables from Park and Terrell. I apologize.
Okay.
We are redeploying those tables from Park and Terrell over to the high school as we have been talking about block scheduling for next year. Block scheduling requires everybody to be eating lunch at the same time, which requires the need to have space for every student to have a place to sit and eat their lunch. So as a way to repurpose those tables, they will be redeployed to the high school in the appropriate space so that we do not have to purchase additional furniture. Yes, thank you. My apologies.
And that's because the high school prefers the rectangle tables.
It's a win-win.
I have finance and community relations, so thank you for that, because I was going to mention that. So finance pretty much mirrored what facilities was, so I'm not going to repeat myself. And we did, the extra thing we did is we went over the budget in detail, which Mrs. Saradaki just did, so I don't really need to repeat myself there either. But I want to thank Mrs. Saradaki for all that work, because that's a lot of numbers to pull together and make everything match. It's really very difficult. The other report is for community relations. We're finalizing our goals next week, and I am currently now receiving each school's PTA emails. And every week I'll read through them. And you guys got an email last week where I pulled out some things that I thought might be good for us all to know that was going on, and I'll continue to do that. 2 other members on the committee asked for the email, so I put in a request to Regina Gannon for that. The PTA leaders were also very interested in sharing our news, and information with the parents on via their newsletters. So next week, we're going to come up with a list of topics like a frequently asked questions, or, did you know? We'll title it somehow. But we'll give all that information to the PTAs in advance so they can schedule it and put it on their newsletter. And that's it.
Thank you, Ms. Brody. Does anybody have questions for Ms. Brody? Any other committee reports? Negotiations, we are meeting again this coming Monday,
And tonight.
the 16th.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other negotiations is we are set to approve the administrator's contract tonight as well. So that contract, the memorandum of agreement had been completed, and we're set to approve that this evening as well. And then the supervisor's contract, as Dr. Kulikowski had mentioned, we're scheduled for a meeting next week for that one.
Thank you, Mr. Murray. Any others? Okay, seeing no other committee reports, we'll move on to the superintendent's report. Dr. Mass?
Thank you. So first, we have some field trip approvals. I would like the board to approve the following field trips. Mr. Rittner has an AP Environmental, our AP Environmental teacher at the high school is requesting to take 6 students to the Overlook Foundation and Emerson Partnership Ecotech Innovation Day at Emerson Florham Park headquarters on May 21st. And of course, all of our field trips are are blinking yellow lights right now, but May 21st is pretty far out there. So, additionally, we have a field trip where high school teachers are requesting to take 10 to 15 members of SAGA and the GSA Leadership Summit, hosted by the LGBT Center of Central Pennsylvania at Penn State University's campus, and that one is April 16th. Peter Kane, our physical education teacher and assistant football coach, is requesting to take 60 students to attend a Rutgers football spring game on April 25th. And Park Middle School teacher Catherine Dixon is requesting to take 6 self-contained students from grades 5 to 8 to Lifetown facility in Livingston. I would like the board to approve the harassment, intimidation, and bullying report that we gave on February 27th. I would like the board to approve the out-of-district placement in case number 1911. And that's it.
We have a motion? So moved. Thank you, Ms.
Second.
Brody. Thank you, Mrs. Winkler. Any questions or discussions about those items?
Just hope that we can actually
Hopefully the lights
have
stay
those field
green.
trips.
Yes,
We'll have them eventually.
we're living in a
Right on
land
the
of
dates
limbo
we're
right
looking
now.
at.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstaining? Motion carries. Personnel report.
I would like for the board to approve the superintendent's recommendation for personnel dated March 12th that we discussed in exec.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Winkler. Thank you, Mr. Murray. Any further question or discussion? Mrs. Saradaki, will you please call the roll?
Mrs. Winkler?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
Mrs. Boroff?
Yes.
Mrs. Brody?
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell?
Yes.
Mrs. Suriani?
Yes.
Mrs. Williams?
Yes.
Dr. Kulikowski?
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you, Dr. Mast. Thank you, Mrs. Saradaki. And Mrs. Saradaki, if you're ready for business functions?
Yes. I'll review the ones that need a vote this evening first. The board to approve the superintendent's recommendations for staff training reimbursements on the reports dated March 12th, 2020. I'd like the board to approve the acceptance of the list of EEF grants for this year. in total amount of $11,064. I'd like the board to approve the proposals from Tanner, North Jersey, and this is on the Education Services Commission, New Jersey bid for 37 tables for Park and 32 for tables for Terrell in the amount of $90,332.73. For BUS, I'd like the board to approve the proposal from A&S Consultants for geotechnical engineering services for the Soilberry program in the amount of $10,970 for the high school field lighting project. We did get proposals from a couple other companies. One was unable to do it until very late spring. The other one was considerably more expensive. So, T&M Associates for the School 1 Playground, 5 BUS. We've used T&M Associates previously. They were involved in the Terrell parking lot. They were also involved in the Parks parking lot. And they have given us a proposal for $7,800 to include the engineering plans and supervision over the in-district workers to reduce our costs. And this would be from current operating account. Brunner Gymnasium, I'll review that later. And the semi-corrective action plan, which should have been in your documents, I'm asking the board to approve the 2019 Special Education Medicaid Initiative Corrective Action Plan, and this has to be submitted with our budget. So that's why we're asking for your approval on that. 15 BUS School 1 Multipurpose Room. I'm asking the board to approve the proposal by Kellen Heating and Air Conditioning in the amount of $69,845 to add a rooftop unit to the top of the cafeteria. 16 BUS. I'm asking for the board's approval of a change order. Actually, it's a combination of two change orders. We needed 2 additional airphones, one at the high school and one at Terrell. The total amount would be $3,162.50. Originally, this was approved, this work back in January for $93,055. I'm sorry, $93,055. 17 BUS, I'm asking for a change order on Shaw Sports Turf. This is something that they had talked to us about, but hadn't submitted the actual page to us to make payment. But this was additional work they had to do in leveling the ground because they found some soft spots up where the turf used to be on the football field. And so they're asking for a change order in the amount of $33,188, which was a lot less than their original plan, which was replacing all the subsurface on the, but they were able to find that they could bring in some limited material and replace it. So, and then 18 BUS, this is for psychological evaluations to be done by Aaron Morey in the amount of $3,000, and 19 BUS, Current Environmental Incorporated proposal for the high school auto shop. They had led me to believe that we had signed the lost documents on that problem that we had. It turns out that the DEP has come back to them and said that they have to do some additional borings to show that the samples they took were the most concentrated of where we had leaks underneath the building. So I'm asking for the board to approve $3,691 for them to finish that work for the DEP.
Can I have a motion for the items Mrs. Surrey just discussed? So moved. Thank you, Ms. Brody. Is there a second? Thank you, Mrs. Boroff. Any further questions or discussions about these items? Mr. Murray.
Sarah, just a couple of questions. On the change order for the vestibule security intercom systems, are these additional installations for airphones, were they just miscounted? Is that why this was necessary? The ones that they were installing were not the right ones?
No, they installed the correct ones. It just was determined that we didn't know at the time when we installed Terrell that the counseling office also will buzz people in. And this is into the vestibule, it's not into the school.
Got it.
And so we had to get, we need to get an additional earphone for that. And then also in the high school office, the office, you know, is quite large. And we'd only put one in there, and they really feel it'd be better with two, so.
And then for the turf, that work has already been done, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you.
I have a question.
Ms. Brody?
The cafeteria tables, when are they going to go in? Is it over the summer?
No, they could come in the next 6 to 8 weeks.
Oh, okay.
If I get the purchase order in tomorrow, so,
And that's when you would do the switch?
yes.
Spring break.
Because, yep, the room, the second floor media center is, they've put the new ceiling in, they painted it, and we've put a new tile floor in. And other than the wax that it needs on the new tile floor, it's ready for tables to go in there. So.
Any other questions? Okay, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? Motion carries. Mrs. Saradaki, you want
items?
to discuss those others? Yeah.
Yes. So the items that I'm asking for your vote on at the next meeting, just going back to the form. 5 BUS, T&M Associates for the School 1 Playground. I'll be asking for approval of this, did I ask
we
for
did
that
that
in the
one.
first one? Yes, okay. 6 BUS. We'll be having the bid opening for the Brunner Gymnasium settlement repairs on Tuesday, March 24th, as long as our attorney is able to review it and our architect is able to review the bid results, and they are in line with what we anticipate spending. We're hoping to get that approved at the next board meeting. The transportation contract renewals at 1.7%. That's the state sets that percentage, and both our contracted bus companies have agreed to renew at that percent. So you'll have the dollar amount spelled out, but it'll all be at the 1.7%. 8 BUS, I'll be asking for the approval of the Union County Ed Services Agreement for transportation for the 2020-2021 school year. It's actual contract cost plus 4% administration fee, which is what it's been for several years. 9 BUS, I'll be asking for the board to acknowledge receipt of the district security and fire drill reports for February. 10 BUS, I'll be asking for the board to acknowledge receipt of the board secretary report, treasurer of school funds report, and budget adjustments for the month of February. 11 BUS, I'll be asking for the board to acknowledge receipt of the disbursement listings for various bank accounts for the month of February. And 12 BUS, I'll be asking the board to approve bills for the periods February 22nd through March 20th. 13 BUS, I'll be asking the board to approve the utilize the services of the Educational Services Commission of New Jersey for educational services for the period July 1st through June 30th, 2025. This is, they issue a 5-year agreement, so you probably haven't seen this before if you haven't been on the board very long, because we only have to approve it every 5 years. 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. That's it.
Thank you, Mrs. Saradaki. We'll hear about those more next time.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question about one of those, though? Okay. For the, Mrs. Saradaki, for 7 BUS, the transportation renewals,
Yes.
I know we have those couple vendors that we're contracted with, but in terms of, I guess I just want your explanation about renewals of the routes when we're in the midst of the transportation study. So what does that mean? Like, are we being asked to vote on Just the vendors or the routes or?
The vendors and the routes, but if we need to make changes in the meantime, because contracts aren't signed in, both vendors are very good about, okay, if we're going to eliminate a route, we'll rebid that route. And, if one of the buses is running a schedule that she doesn't think we should be running.
Okay.
So if we need to pull routes, we can work with the vendor on that. And if we have to add something new, we'll rebid that individual route.
Okay, thank you.
I had a question on that also. My question is different, though. We're renewing the contracts, we will be renewing the contracts. Is that an increase of 1.7%?
Yes.
I guess my question is that I was under the impression that across the state there were a shortage of bus drivers, and it was driving up costs and contracts and stuff. My impression was that it was driving costs up by more than that, but you were saying that the state sets the limit on that.
For renewals.
Okay.
So if they said we can't afford to do it for 1.7%, we would have to go out and bid again for the routes. We ended up doing that last year because they said they couldn't.
Okay.
But
they couldn't do it within the state
State guidelines, yes. And so we rebid all our routes last year.
Is the transportation for special education the 1.7% as well?
No.
No, I think that's what you're thinking of.
I'm thinking of both.
Okay, these are the routes for our gen ed students in town.
Okay.
Our special education, well, actually, some of our elementary, we have two companies we use, and Amaker and Porterfield does a lot of our special ed transportation for elementary school, and that's to our schools, not to other schools. And they have agreed to renew at 1.7%. The routes that we get through Union County Ed Services Commission aren't bound by any percentage because they're rebid every year. And those are all our students that go to out-of-district schools and also our in-district students, the older in-district students and the VOTEC students.
Great. Okay.
So those routes,
Clarifying
and that's what went up almost $500,000 this year.
Yeah. See, that's what I'm.
Yes.
So that is what I'm thinking of.
The 1.7 seems like a good deal.
Yeah, it does seem like a good deal. Thank you.
No further questions for Mrs. Saradagi? Okay. Moving on to new board business. Is there any new board business? Seeing none. Other board business. Any liaison reports? Any requests to attend workshops? The 2020 October workshop conference dates are October 19th through the 22nd. So start taking a look at your availability for that. Any workshop reports? Request to attend the NJSBA workshop.
That's me. That's me. At
If
our,
it takes place.
Yeah, at our last meeting, or the one, I think at the last meeting, a couple other board members had requested it, and we had voted on putting them on. But then I realized that I'd like to attend that as well. So that's me.
So moved.
Second.
Any other questions? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
One comment on the conference. We will need to hear from board members at the next board meeting whether they're planning to attend.
Okay.
That's true, too.
Thank you, Mrs.
The
Sadardo.
October conference.
Yes, the October conference.
Need to know. Okay, and at our next meeting, we're going to discuss the administrator's contract with 2OBB.
Oh, that should be
Are we
asked.
approving that tonight, right?
Oh, we are, because there's no
Yeah.
asterisk. Okay.
We should be.
All right, then I changed my mind. And can I have a motion for the administrator's contract?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Murray. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Winkler. Any question or discussion? Roll call vote, Mrs. Saradaki?
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
Mrs. Winkler?
Yes.
Mrs. Boroff?
Yes.
Mrs. Brody?
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell?
Yes.
Mrs. Suriani?
Yes.
Mrs. Williams?
Yes.
Dr. Kulikowski?
Yes. Motion carries. At our next meeting for 3OBB, National Autism Awareness Month of April, we'll need someone to read the resolution. 4OBB will be the approval of the 2020-2021 schedule of board meeting dates. They're listed here on the next page, as well as our reorg meeting, staff recognition, and student recognition. And then at our next meeting, we'll also have 5OBB for Nisavacia LLP agreement. And we'll also discuss the approval of the minutes from the February 20th open agenda and executive session meetings, and February 27th, a regular board meeting and its executive session as well. At this time, in accordance with the Scotch Plains Fanwood Public Schools Bylaw 0164-0165, the meeting will be open for 15 minutes for public comments with a maximum of 3 minutes per speaker. Speakers addressing superintendent items, business functions, and other board business will be heard first. If time remains, speakers may address other matters. When you approach the podium, please state your name and the town in which you reside. Seeing no one approaching the podium, we'll close this portion of the meeting and move on to the good of the order. Anybody have anything for the good of the order? Mrs. Brody?
I did a couple of things since our last meeting. I read books at Kohl's and School One, which was wonderful. Different ages, too. I read to older kids, but I did okay, because I got a little intimidated by them, because I haven't read to kids in a long time.
Those fourth graders.
Yeah, but it was a lot of fun. I also went to the McGinn Science Fair.
Oh.
And I watched a couple of kids do experiments. Each child, they had a display and they did experiments, and the parents were there helping them, and it was very, very nice. And I did have the pleasure to go to see Chicago, which was very good.
Okay. Very busy. Anyone else? I also saw Chicago on Sunday at the matinee, and I was also at School One in Kohl's, but I think I must have missed you.
I think I was in the morning, you were in the afternoon.
I had the really little kids. So it was great to go to Kohl's and see the kindergarten students there, and then School One also had kindergartners there. It's nice to see the different atmospheres at the schools, and they're so enthusiastic to meet you and ask the questions, and I'm sure it's a great difference in their day. One of the days at Kohl's was pajama day.
Yes,
so they
it
were
was.
all in their pajamas. I
Yeah.
said, if I knew,
All the
I would have
teachers.
worn mine.
All the
But-
staff was in pajamas, too.
Yeah, it was great. It was very nice. So,
When did we do our walkthroughs?
when did we do what?
Dr. Max and I.
You didn't
Talk about that. I don't think you
So
mentioned
Dr.
it.
Mass and I have been on a quest to do walkthroughs through the different schools. The last round we did was probably a couple weeks ago. Don't know specifically the date, but we went to School One. We were fortunate enough that it was pouring rain out, so we were actually able to see the ponding at the playground in action, and it was definitely ponding. And we went to McGinn as well, and we got to walk through some kindergarten classes. We walked through and checked in each of the different rooms. They got new lighting, so it was the new LED lighting in the classrooms was the teachers were saying was definitely a lot brighter, so that was good.
You got to see a lot of the language arts program in action
We did, and music.
and music.
And the music. So it was great. We were trying to work the schedule around sitting and having lunch in the middle school. Time got away from us. So the next one we'll do. So we've done this now twice. So we've been through the high school, we've been through Park, we've been through Evergreen. So I think we have Coles and Terrell left. So it's been very exciting.
Very good. Anybody else for the good of the order? Yes, Ms. Sarandon.
I just wanted to mention that I think all of the board members, attended the EEF dinner last week. And I just want to applaud the EEF for putting together such a great night. There was just a lot of positive energy and camaraderie in the room, and I enjoyed Mr. Rittner's presentation. Mr. Rittner on the on the environmental science, the benefits of previous grant. It was really exciting to see what you had done with your class. I really enjoyed that piece of it, and just I loved hearing about all of the upcoming program that we can expect in our schools. There are a lot of new and exciting grants that are listed in the agenda in all of the schools. It's really exciting. So.
And I would just like to mention the work that our administrators did at Administrative Council to prepare for our emergency planning day yesterday, where we were able to put in a plan should we need to close schools. And it falls under a home instruction plan. That was the direction that we were given from the Department of Education. And that requires that we have 10 hours of instruction for students to do at home. So it's very clear that what students will be doing at home without their teachers there is very different what they would be doing in school. But teachers really were very thoughtful about finding activities that would reinforce prior learning, that would give opportunities for exploration, that would give also opportunities to read and to write about things that they're learning. And the teachers are going to be checking in with their students every day. At the middle school and high school, it's structured a little bit differently because it's by content, and there are assignments across all of the content areas for students to do. So in the event of an emergency and we're closing school, we do want students to continue to learn and to partner with their teachers, but it will be a very different type of learning platform. But it was a real team building, thoughtful effort that happened yesterday across the board, and I couldn't be more pleased with how people came together to put our plan in place.
Thank you.
How you did it so quickly. Well, thank you, Dr. Mast. And also, we have some new artwork today. It's great. Very nice from the high school. I appreciate all the changes that we get. And if there's no further good of the order?
I forgot one thing.
Oh, you have one. Go right
I do
ahead.
have. I just wanted to share. This is a picture of all of the students that have participated. Not the ones that participated, but the ones that have won the first level of the PTA Reflections program. And they are moving on through county and state. I don't know their names. I'm sorry, but there's quite a few here, and it's nice to see that is here.
And where was that announced? Or where was
I
that?
believe the PTA sent it to me. It was I think at the Founders Day dinner.
Oh, okay.
Dinner. I think they announced that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for sharing that.
Thank you.
That's great. I look forward to seeing those in the future. Okay. So can I have a motion for adjournment after we talk about coffee with the superintendent? Maybe. On March 18th from 7 to 9 at Park Middle School. And our next board meeting is next week, March 26th. So can I have a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Mr. Murray and
Second.
Brody. No discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Meeting adjourned.
Thank you.
Oh, how sweet.